Good morning, everyone, and welcome to the monthly economic briefing presented by the Kenan Institute of Private Enterprise at UNC Kenan-Flagler Business School. I'm External Affairs Associate Rob Knapp, and it's good to have you with us this morning. So, new year, new economy, right? Well, not necessarily. Economy at the end of 2023 is pretty much the same economy we have at the very beginning of 2024. But the turning on the page of the calendar gives us an opportunity to look forward a little bit, maybe take a look at what may be happening in the next 12 months. Our Chief Economist, Gerald Cohen, is going to be with us in a moment to talk about that, as well as this morning's jobs numbers, which came in at 216,000 added in December for those of you keeping score at home. That's a pretty good number, and it's going to have the soft landing folks talking up their game. So we're going to get to that in a moment, but for a moment, I'll give you the run through for those of you who haven't been with us before. After this intro, Dr. Cohen will talk for approximately 15 to 20 minutes on his presentation. We'll have about 10 minutes left for questions from the audience. You can submit those questions at any time. Anybody watching can submit. Go to the question and answer function at the bottom of your screen to do that. If you're joining us by phone today, you can still submit a question. You can email it to me. I'm at rob_knapp@kenan-flagler.unc.edu. For questions from the press, please include your organization and title so that we can know to make sure to get those answered on the air for you. We're going to try and land this thing at 9:30. Put a bow on it then. We might go a minute or two longer if we have questions left to answer, but it is good if you can get your questions in fairly early in the briefing. That will give us a chance to answer them. So without further ado, let me bring on our Chief Economist, Gerald Cohen. Gerald, good morning and Happy New Year.
Good morning, Rob. Happy New Year to you. It's great to be here and looking forward. Today my agenda is a little bit a combination of talking about the economic data this morning and also previewing our 5 trends piece, which will be released next week. 5 trends to watch in the economy in 2024. So let me start by sharing my screen and starting the presentation, and let me just make sure that this go into presentation mode. So now I have to. Can you? Hopefully you can. Can you see it in full screen mode? Let me know if you cannot.
I am seeing it. I'm seeing it almost in full screen mode. We had it in full screen for a moment. We've got some next slide and no notes going on the side.
So that's this is always the here we go. No, is that it? No.
There we go. We're on
it. All right, great. So that's not where I want to start. So as Rob said, we had 216,000 jobs created in the month of December. However, it was stronger than the expected 171,000. But previous months were revised down, which kind of continues a trend that I've highlighted before, and a little bit of a worrying trend. So on net, if you take above expectations but below, but with the downward revisions, it's just about in line with expectations, maybe a little bit weaker. So where we would expect. But one of the things I want to point out is that that kind of trend line has really stopped. Seems to be stopped falling in the 3-month trend, and I'm just going to oppose something that Rob said, which is I'm not sure that I'd call this a soft landing. I would call this continued strong growth because 216,000 or a 3-month average of 175,000 ish is well above what I would consider, or a 3-month average of 165,000 is well above what I would consider stable job creation, or job creation that's consistent with a stable unemployment rate, or the growth in the labor force. So I think that this isn't a soft landing. This is still a healthy growth job report, or a relatively healthy growth job report. The unemployment rate, and maybe this is more important because of, as I said, if the unemployment rate is stable, then maybe that's what the Fed wants, and that suggests that we can continue to grow at this level. And it was unchanged at 3.7%, hovering near the record low that we saw, or 50-year low that we saw earlier, or in 2023. And one of the things
Sorry, Gerald, just need to jump in for a second. We're almost
Yep.
to presentation mode, but I'm still seeing your future slides on the side.
So
and the toolbar at the bottom.
I'm sorry.
It's okay. It's New Year.
New year, new problems. Let me see. Wait, there's a way there. I know there's a way of doing this, and I should be able to. Let's see. Why am I having this problem? And I'm sorry, I'm wasting everybody's time with this. If I do hide presenter view, does that do it? No, that doesn't do it, right?
Yeah, either one of these is big enough on people's screens, I think, that we'll be okay if we can't find an immediate solution.
Okay, let me see. I'm sorry, display settings. I know there's a way of getting to this, changing this, and I'm just embarrassed that I can't remember how to do it at this moment. So maybe I'll just go with this. So one of the things that I wanted to point out is that that you have this kind of push and pull in the labor force participation rate, which is really important for seeing if there's the right amount of slack or not, or if we're at full employment, or how many jobs we can create. And right now the overall level, which is the blue line, is still below pre-COVID levels, but it's been historically pushed down by demographics. The prime age, or working age, and I'm 25 to 54, now being above that, I still consider myself in my prime, but that's just the official definition, is above pre-COVID levels. And one of the big questions is older workers have not returned, but when I dug into the data, I noticed that the 55 to 64-year-olds, where I'm at, are not driving this trend. They're actually, we are actually above or near record levels. Actually, it declined in December from a record in November. But that participation in of the 55 to 64-year-olds is above record levels. It's the 65 plus that's kind of driving the Great Resignation at this point. So I think that's an important trend to think about, where participation can come from, that we really need the 65 plus to increase. I mean, it would be great to have the 55 plus, but it's really the 65 plus that are driving these participation rates. And unfortunately, because of demographic trends, those folks are continuing, or that demographic is growing, and so that's kind of their historic reasons to push down the participation, the labor force participation rate, their demographic forces that are pushing down the participation rate. So we need to at least get back to pre-COVID levels and increase that to really grow our labor force, or have immigration, or having more kids is gonna increase participation 20 years from now. So I thought that was like an interesting insight into this data. In terms of today's data, the wages increased 0.4%, which is, the blue bars are kind of back to, we're not seeing a lot of slowing there, which is concerning from the inflation standpoint, and they're up 4.1% year on year, faster than headline and headline CP and core inflation numbers. And whether this feeds into inflation, it's a question of productivity. Are we going to have productivity gains that offset these, or are profit margins going to decline? And the news on productivity recently has been pretty good. That GDP, which is the orange line, is growing faster than hours worked recently, which suggests that productivity has picked up. Will it continue is an important question for us. And this kind of leads us to one of our five trends, which is what's going to happen to the Fed. But and the next thing related to that is inflation. So the headline numbers, the PCE numbers are all kind of coming into the Fed's comfort zone. The 3-month change, while the year-on-year is still above, the 2% range, it's closer to 3. The 3-month change in both the CPI and the Fed's preferred measure of the PCE are growing around 2 to 3%. So they're in that comfort zone. The problem is that more sticky measures, which are a better measure of kind of forward-looking inflation, and this is the Atlanta's Fed sticky CPI, is not decelerating. So the orange line is the 3-month change, and it's running at 4.75%, not the 2 to 3% that the 3-month change in the PCE or the CPI numbers are. And the year-on-year at 4.5% is worrying. So this is, again, feeds into one of our five trends. Will the Fed, or how much will the Fed cut rates? So instead,
Gerald,
many people.
Let me jump in one more time with something from Robbie Passel, our Zoom czar today. He says, click the 3 dots. And hide presenter view.
Click the 3 dots and hide. I don't see presenter view.
Click hide 3 dots, probably below the slide.
Let me see. Oh, this might. You know what the problem might be? Hold on. That the 3 dots might be my 3 dots here. Mm-hmm. Sorry. That's what I did, and I got this.
Okay.
So I don't know which one is better.
I'd go back to the one you were on before.
Right. Sorry, we're now I'm having a hard time getting that view. Let me just see. Let's see. Okay.
Sorry to keep popping in and breaking.
That's all right.
All right, here we go.
Hold on, let me try one last thing. Okay. All right. So this is so instead of saying like let's take a forecast, instead of saying let's take one forecast, what I actually did is I looked at 3 different scenarios for the economy, and these are stylized. You could argue whether they're the right or the wrong, but I wanted to present something. Is the soft landing the right scenario? So what I did is I took a model of the Fed called the Taylor rule, and we used the balanced Taylor rule, or balanced approach. And in the 5 trends piece, which will be out next week, I'll have a link to it. And I fed in 3 different economic scenarios. One was the Fed's actually economic forecast that came from their summary of economic projections released in mid-December. And that yields the dotted blue line here. So the dots are the forecast line, and that has the Fed, and this is I would call the kind of soft landing. Growth slows, inflation continue or kind of comes down and settles at around 2%. And that suggests that the Fed should cut rates around 1.25 percentage points, which is really what the markets are pricing in. So that's the dotted blue line. The next scenario is the mild recession scenario, which is that the economy declines for 2 quarters at around a 1.5% rate in the middle of 2024, and inflation kind of follows suit, and kind of continues to decline and kind of ends up at around a 2% rate, and that suggests that the Fed should actually cut rates by 3 percentage points. And then you have what I would say the data is pointing to, which is at this point, which is the no landing view, which is that the economy actually continues to grow at around a 3% rate, which is what it has grown over the last year. And then inflation grows also at a 3% rate, which is what it has over the last year. And so there's no slowdown, there's no soft landing. Inflation kind of stays higher than the Fed wants, but not at 6%, but at 3%. And that suggests that's the green dotted line, which suggests that the Fed should actually raise rates by 1/4 percentage point. And then just to put everything into perspective, that black dotted line is what the Fed is saying, the median forecast of the FOMC in their summary of economic projections, which is a 3/4 percentage point cut over the next year. So what I'm trying to say is the soft landing the only scenario we should be thinking about? And I don't think that is the case. I'll let you folks decide about what probabilities you want to give, but I just want to say that I don't think we should all be saying soft landing and that's it. I think we should be thinking about different scenarios. The next trend I want to point out, and related to interest rates, is will housing shortages abate? And I'm noting, this chart notes that new mortgage rates, even with the recent decline in long-term interest rates, are well above the interest rate on all of existing mortgages, the stock of existing mortgages in the United States. And so what that means is that many people are kind of stuck in their houses and unwilling to move. And it also suggests that, the cost of buying a new house or moving is quite high because existing mortgage rates are relatively high. I mean, they're lower relative to 20 years ago, but they are high relative to the last 20 or so years. So in addition, those high interest rates will weigh on building. Builders, it'll be harder for them to get capital. And so not only will there not be moving, but there would not be a lot of a lot of building activity if interest rates remain high. Now, if we go into a recession and interest rates decline, then also it's not a time when people are really willing to move or builders are willing to build. So I don't think that this is an environment where you're going to see a significant abatement of housing shortages. The next question is, and as hopefully everybody in the audience knows, that we've created our American Growth Project, where we're analyzing how local economies fare, and I wanted to kind of take the housing impact and look at and show you how while national housing permits, which is a good leading indicator of future housing activity, declined by 12.5%. There is significant variance, with some extended metro areas declining by one declining by over 50%, and one extended metro area rising, doubling, or permits doubled between 2022 and 2023. And permits are a very good leading indicator of housing activity going forward. So we use that in our models to forecast what's going to happen in the future. And overall, even though even though there is significant growth in some areas, some metro areas in their housing activity, we still are expecting that all of our 150 extended metro areas will show slower growth. I'm going to point to Alaska for a second in the map and say, Alaska had this 113% increase, and it is expected to slow, although it is actually expected to have the slowest. Anchorage is expected to have the smallest decline because of the strength of housing activity, or the smallest deceleration in growth of all of our 150 MAs. And so we're expecting all of them to slow, Alaska the least, and 56 of them highlighted in kind of orange and or yellow, orange and red-ish, are expected to decline. So 56 of our EMAs are actually expected to show contraction, but all 150 are expected to slow. And another of our trends is, will geopolitical uncertainties weigh on economic growth? And the challenge is that, this is an election year with a lot of uncertainty about what's going on around the election. And businesses and households hate uncertainty. You don't make big decisions when the world is uncertain, or you're less willing to make big decisions like invest in, capital for, a new building or a new house, a new building, a new machine, a new expensive software. There's uncertainty. And I think this is a year where uncertainty is going to be quite high because of existing uncertainties around, geopolitical two wars going on. But in addition, the election, there's a lot of uncertainty around that. And as such, and this is our fifth trend, businesses need to build resilience. And that is going to be our theme for next year for our grand challenge about building business resilience. So that's another trend that we will be watching and discussing over the next year. So let me stop there, and apologies for the technical issues and taking all the time on that, and open it up to questions.
Thank you very much, sir. A lot to take in, 5 trends and a lot more. So we have some questions, and I'll get right to those from Lauren Onesorge at Triangle Business Journal. Asks, what's the biggest takeaway for Triangle CEOs? Oh, you getting out of full screen there?
I finally got it.
I'm still seeing your screen.
All right. So what is the biggest takeaway for Triangle CEOs? I think 2 things. One is I think that there's a lot of uncertainty. And it's important to think about the uncertainty, to understand how to make decisions under uncertainty. There's uncertainty about the Fed. There's uncertainty about, I didn't even mention, whether we'll have another government shutdown. There's uncertainty around the election, but those uncertainties create opportunities. It's if you can say, this is, either I'm going to live with the volatility, or I'm going to, this is an opportunity for me to grow somewhere, I'm going to take this risk and go with it. So I think that's the biggest takeaway, that it is this year, look, this is a year of uncertainty, and we should be thinking about how you deal with that.
Okay, good. Quick follow-up from Lauren, in particular about housing permit growth. She was interested if you have the projections on this for Raleigh specifically at hand.
I don't, without, kind of fumfering around, I don't, but we can get back to you on that. I do have I can tell you the numbers for 2023 for it would be the Raleigh, the Triangle metro area, because we think of Raleigh and Durham Chapel Hill as one economic area, but I can get back to you on that.
Okay, so Lauren, you'll hear from us. This one from Matt Boyle at Bloomberg. Good morning, Matt. He asked, some 845,000 people left the labor force in December. The participation rate slid the most since January 2021. What do you think happened here? Most observers are scratching their heads on that one so far.
So I have the household survey where the participation rate comes from is a much smaller survey than the payroll survey. I mean, you're only surveying 60,000 households, and so there tends to be a lot of month-to-month volatility in these numbers. So I would say I want to see a couple more months. I mean, I noted that the unemployment rate was actually unchanged because you had a big decline in the labor force and a big decline in the number of employed, but actually a small increase in the number of unemployed, and all of that kind of netted out to this flat unemployment rate. But I think that there's just too much month-to-month volatility to read anything into that. And interestingly, the biggest change came from that 55 to 64. That's where the participation rate dropped the most. That was really the driver of the big drop. And I just think that there's too much volatility to say anything. Come in a month or two, let's look at it again.
All right, so we'll circle back on that one. This one from Richard Craver at the Winston-Salem Journal. He asks how immigration is benefiting the NC economy, particularly in potential new workers for the advanced manufacturers over the next 3 years. Is it workers recognizing opportunities in NC, or bonus for those moving for family, et cetera? I know this is kind of a complicated issue.
Right. So this is Richard. I appreciate the question, and it is a bit of a complicated issue. The two things that I can say are that we're having strong net immigration, both domestic and international. We are having strong. There are companies that are moving here. There are companies that are expanding here. What we know from our discussions with business people and from our Frontiers of Business conference is that companies are working, especially in advanced manufacturing, to train people internally, meaning in the state or in the local communities. So I think that for many of the line workers, so I think that I suspect, but key word is suspect, that most of the migration is coming in the managerial, the kind of the higher, the high tech workers, meaning the non-line workers. So the managerial workers are moving in, but not the kind of in the advanced manufacturing, not the line workers. And that's good for the state. I mean, I think both things are good for the state, but I think the fact that these companies are working to train workers locally increases the skill levels of those workers. And if you haven't seen it, we've done work on skills, and we're doing more work on measuring skills and the importance of that in local economic activity. So by increasing those skills of existing workers, that's really great for the economy. And then bringing in skilled workers from outside of the state is also beneficial. So in some respects, I'd rather not see us import those workers. I'd rather see us skill up those existing workers. And I think that you're seeing that, but I don't have enough data to tell you that with certainty.
Okay, thank you. We better go to lightning round for these last three. So 30-second answers, I'd say.
Okay.
From Gray Bullard, does the sticky inflation augur well for inflation-adjusted Treasury bonds in the longer term?
So the sticky inflation numbers suggest that in my opinion, that inflation is not going to come down or is not going to stay. We're going to end up closer to the 3% in the medium term or for the next several months, next 6 to 12 months, than the 2% that the current data is suggesting, which suggests that the inflation adjustment for those Treasury bonds are going to remain favorable. For those inflation-adjusted bonds are going to remain favorable. The challenge is that, as I said, that could lead to the Fed keeping rates high, and then the question is, what are the consequences of that?
Okay, great. Let's see, another sticky inflation question, a little broader though. Mark Froman asks, what are the stickier inflation factors from Atlanta Fed?
They look at things where it's a statistical analysis of all the measures of inflation and seeing where you don't see a lot of where it doesn't change very often, and so it's a statistical measure of measures that are sticky. But one of them is clearly housing, and I should note that housing inflation on a 3-month basis, which is an indicator of the trend, is around 6%. So housing has not shown the declines, and that's in some respects because of the housing shortages that we're seeing. And on a year-on-year basis, it's over it's 6.5%. So housing is one of those sticky measures where, you know, it takes a lot of time for the kind of these trends to change. And I think that's in some respect, and housing is a big component of people's, you know, inflation.
Okay. Last call from Lynn Davis. Any trends for areas that have seen growth from the retiree market, like Eastern North Carolina?
So that's something that we actually noted in one of our reports, that about the, you know, mid-sized cities is that a lot of, in some respects, some of the fastest growth in population is occurring in cities such as Myrtle Beach and, you know, Wilmington. The challenge is that those, because they're retirees, it drives less economic activity than if you're bringing in, you know, industry that's occurring in the Triangle area. So I'm not saying it's a bad thing. I'm just saying that these places are likely to experience slower growth, and we found that is the case. So I'm using Myrtle Beach because it had the fastest population growth of our 100 mid-sized cities. We found that it's not growing as quickly as other mid-sized cities because the industry mix is more towards, you know, services for retirees rather than, you know, building industries for you know, workers that are migrating. So this is one of the reasons why, you know, the Triangle remains one of the faster growing areas, because we're getting these migrations, we're getting these industries.
Okay, thank you very much. Terrific work, Dr. Gerald Cohen. We didn't just do a month this month, we did a whole year. So
Yes.
much higher degree of difficulty this time around. Appreciate all your insight as always. We also appreciate the attendees for being here. Thank you all for your questions. Great as always, give us a lot to think about. For the media in the audience, we would love to continue the conversation. If you're working on stories about the economy or anything on the business spectrum, and would like one of our experts to contribute, please let me know. You can find me at rob_knapp at kenan-flagler.unc.edu. For everyone out there, we hope you will check into our website, kenaninstitute.unc.edu. There is a lot going on. You will soon find Gerald's piece on the 5 trends, which can tell you more in depth about what he talked about this morning. You will soon find our growth projections for major cities as part of our American Growth Project. That's coming up very soon. You're also going to see a lot more about our grand challenge for this year, the topic that we'll be diving into in depth throughout the year, using a lot of different experts and a lot of different formats to get information to you. So be sure to check this out.
And I just want to apologize again for the technical issues. You'll all be getting a copy of these slides so you can look at them closely. And also in the 5 trends piece, and also in the piece on the growing cities, the maps and the graphics will be interactive, so you can actually explore those scenarios on your own. So encourage you to do that.
Yes, that's true. All those things will be showing up in your email on Friday afternoon, just as they always do on briefing day. So keep an eye out for that. Let's see, where were we? I think we're pretty much done. So we appreciate you being with us. We look forward to doing this again in February. So please check back with us then. Thanks again, and enjoy the rest of your Friday.